initiate self-destruct sequencing.
Welcome to our terrible review miniseries, My Mando and Me.
My Mando and Me!
We're three friends hanging out, talking about whatever seems interesting at the time. And for now, that's The Mandalorian Season 2. If we haven't met before, hi, my name is Robert.
Hi, I'm James.
I'm still looking for my water buffalo. I'm Nathan.
We're taking a break from our regularly scheduled programming to share our thoughts on each chapter of Season 2 of The Mandalorian on Disney+. After each chapter airs, you can expect our review to drop the Sunday after.
No one likes spoilers, especially Darth Vader. I hear he's offering a substantial reward for the one that spoils The Mandalorian.
I hear they're free to use any methods necessary, but he wants them alive.
No spoilers!
As you wish.
From here on out, we are in spoiler territory.
Chapter 15, The Believer, written and directed by Rick Famuyiwa. To move against the Empire, the Mandalorian needs the help of an old enemy.
We'll ride through this juggernaut chronologically, covering what happens along the way, and share any thoughts or notes we have.
We open up on Carthon in the chop fields as a New Republic security droid approaches Migs Mayfeld cutting up a TIE fighter. Inmate 34667 is given new instructions to follow Marshal Dune as he is remanded into her custody. She has a job for him and is taken to the Slave One to meet up with the crew. I love this opening, an Imperial graveyard, and it is huge. Just goes to show how large the Imperial Navy is still up for debate, the remnant at least. It reminds me of the prologue of Fallen Order, where we start on Braca and our hero is cutting up Republic battle cruisers. Mayfeld doesn't seem too happy to be taken away, even if it's played more as confusion than anxiety. But you can kind of tell like he was getting comfortable with his sentence. He doesn't really want to leave.
Yeah, when it was mentioned last week, Mayfield had been sentenced to a chop field. I had no idea what it could possibly be. I did not think it was going to literally turn out to be a chop shop, taking apart old starfighter salvage, which, hey, means we get to see an AT-AT crane again.
Very neat.
Yeah, and I like that we wasted no time on a complicated prison break for them to acquire Mayfield. It just left more time for the rest of the episode.
Marshal Dune and Mayfeld meet up with Boba Fett, Fennec Shan, and Mando. While believing he was freed so Mando can kill him, they explain that they need his knowledge of Imperial clearances and protocols. They board the Slave One and head out. I like how Mayfeld briefly confuses Boba with Mando here. He kind of gets this whole like, oh, I thought you were the other guy. And then Mando literally appears right after. I think the only thing that would have made this better is if it was one of those classic, he's standing right behind me, isn't he, lines. And then have Mando appear right behind Mayfeld. The look on his face is just priceless when he sees Mando show up. Since Cara refused to tell him anything when he was remanded to her custody, it does make sense that her silence and then seeing Mando would lead him to believe that he's a dead man. We learn later why it was curious to see Mayfeld with a look of embarrassment on his face when they point out to him that he used to be an Imperial. And then Kara's disgust with him is a nice reminder of how much she hates imps, even past ones. It's kind of like how old Nazis don't get a free pass in our world, even if they aren't serving in the Nazi army anymore.
And just a reminder that Cara Dune is Alderaanian, and I'm pretty sure I'd have rooted hatred towards those who blew up my own planet. So,
and maybe because he hadn't had the time, but I'm a teeny bit disappointed that we're not seeing Boba's outfit completely restored. But the paint job is a nice touch. Maybe this is his new look. Also, it's nice to see that Boba still has his E-33 carbine rifle, one of my favorite weapons in Star Wars.
I was actually kind of disappointed in how this partially restored armor looked. I'm not against him repairing it. It's just that it looks very plasticky in this chapter. And I get that it could be he's only partway through buffing out all the wear and tear, or maybe they decided to give it this matte appearance to help contrast Mando and keep him from standing out so much. Regardless, at the moment, I'm not a fan, but I'll be patient because it's Boba. hopefully I'm no good to him dead.
Yeah, my first impressions of the paint job for Fett's armor, I just do not like it. The colors look off. It almost makes him look like the eventual toy that Disney's going to make out of him. It looks too clean. In my opinion, the beat up, rusted look works a lot better, possibly even as a lure to his opponents, getting them in a false sense of security. This bounty hunter has all busted armor. He isn't a threat. Pew pew.
Now aboard the Slave One, the team explains to Mayfeld the mission at hand. They need the coordinates for Moff Gideon's cruiser. Mayfeld would rather have stayed on Carthon, but Kara informs him they have his kid. Still reluctant, Mayfeld explains he'll need access to an Imperial terminal to access the information they seek. And there's one on Morak, in a secret Imperial mining hub. Fett locks in the coordinates and they're off. Nearing Morak, Boba scans the planet to see what they're walking into. The mining facility is refining highly volatile and explosive rhydonium, and is protected by anti-aircraft cannons and a platoon of soldiers. The plan is to go in quiet, but first they'll need a closer look. While it's not the exact same as they have the kid from the last chapter, it's close enough. And I like that it doesn't totally work on Mayfeld. He's surprised to hear he was taken, but doesn't appear to share the same concern the rest of the group has, as he really wants to know what's in it for him. And I like that that's staying true to his character. I did notice that Fennec also doesn't look too happy to be heading to an Imperial facility. I think it just goes to show the attention to detail in the characters' movements and facial expressions, even when they aren't the focus of the scene. It's just a great nod to every actor's tradecraft here showing in full effect. Really neat stuff. Mayfeld does make a passive and almost flirtatious remark about Kara. This, along with some other things going on later on in the episode between them, make me feel like they're trying to ask us to ship these two. I will pass, thanks. I've always wondered how the inside of the Slave One worked. Since its flying profile is perpendicular to when it lands, we actually get to see that here inside the common area, it rotates. Very, very cool. And fun fact, rhydonium made its first appearance in the Clone Wars. Watch it. They land on Morak and survey the area as they devise a plan. Mayfeld needs help, but points out that if Rebel Dropper goes in and is scanned, she'll be picked up on the New Republic register and face trouble with the Imperials. Mando suggests Fennec go in his place, but she's wanted by the ISB, who Mayfeld points out runs these secret operations. Fett's face is a bit too recognizable, so it looks like Mando is the guy. Only he'll need to take off his helmet to do it. I love the ISB mention here. They aren't prominently featured in Star Wars properties like these very often, but ever since Rebels, guys, watch it. We've been seeing them and hearing them more often, and I love it. I like that it's Kara, the New Republic Marshal, Fennec, wanted, Fett, too recognizable. It's like the problem with Boba is that he'd be the focus of attention, kind of a meta joke to how about bringing him into The Mandalorian could have been too much of a distraction for the rest of, taking away from the rest of our characters, and probably not in a life-threatening way for him in this mission, but that the imps would be fanboying so much that he couldn't sneak away to access the terminal, though he could have probably served as a good distraction.
Although I think leaving Fett to pilot his own ship is not only natural, but essential, because after Mando and Mayfeld are picked up, they're attacked. And since he doesn't appear to have any gunner-accessible turrets for his passengers to clamber into, this leaves him in a position to be using his equipment, which he knows best. I mean, let's watch him kick butt in the tragedy again. Beautiful.
Yeah, and it is interesting to find out that ex-ISB officers are in charge of the remnant bases, which would help explain why Moff Gideon, himself a high-ranking ex-ISB officer, has the amount of power and the access to the amount of troops that he does.
I didn't make that connection. Cool. Mayfeld, Kara, and Mando board a transport carrying rhydonium as it slows to enter a tunnel. Kara quickly takes out the 2 transport troopers with a bit of that old rebel shock trooper brute force. Mayfeld and Mando change into the transport trooper armor, board the transport, and move out to the facility. En route, Mayfeld pesters Mando about his new armor. Here we get Kara being a badass as usual. We need more of her in this show. She's just great whenever she's on screen. I also love how Mayfeld teases Mando here. You can also tell by Mando's rigid body language sitting in the cockpit. You can tell he's super uncomfortable with all this, but they have the kid. The one-sided conversation here with Mayfeld that Mayfeld has with Mando is pretty deep on some levels. He talks about how the Empire and the New Republic being invaders on people's lands. That's how the people just see them. Somewhere, someone is ruling and others are being ruled. People are forced to fight in a war without choice in most cases. And then he shares a line where he says, if you were born on Mandalore, you believe one thing. And if you were born on Alderaan, you believe another thing. But guess what? Neither of them exist anymore. And I'm like, dang, bro, that hurts. That really hurts. He does continue to point out that Mando's rules change when he starts to get desperate. Is the rule that he can't take off the Mando helmet, or the rule that he can't not show his face? In the end, for the show, I don't think that it will matter, at least not until he's confronted by the Watch. But the show doesn't seem to be in too much of a hurry to get that. Mando's focus is changing, and the creed is becoming less and less of a concern for him. And before I end my rant here on this section, before they take off in the transport, Mayfeld is hitting on Kara again. That ship is not sailing, dude. Get off.
I just want to clarify that when Robert mentions the Watch, he's referring to the Death Watch, if you haven't heard of them before, which is a radical terroristic group from Mandalore who are trying to like be more kind of violent, I guess, in their actions, which is totally not what the Mandalore was trying to, or the community of the Mandalore was trying to do in the Clone Wars saga. So just to clarify, when he says the Watch, he meant the Death Watch, for those who don't know about it.
And yeah, I'm kind of surprised that when they did this whole quick change into the armor stuff, that they didn't go with like any kind of low hanging fruit of the too short for a stormtrooper type jokes or references. Given the past history of this show, I thought for sure they'd do something like that. And it was really cool just from the body language, seeing the Mandalorian's kind of seething rage and annoyance in Mayfield as he's ribbing him. But at one point in the conversation, Mando does the whole let's get one thing straight, you and I are nothing alike line. And it may be a cliche seen in countless other stories across numerous genres, but it's obvious foreshadowing for him and Mayfield to kind of find out why, yes, hey, they are more similar than they realized. Also sort of how like Mayfield calls himself at one point a survivor is also a foreshadowing to what we find out about his backstory later on in the episode.
It was a very, very good conversation. Good scene. Our counterfeit troopers pick up distress calls on the radio. The other transports are under attack. With the rest of the transports eliminated, the pirates set their sight on Mando and Mayfeld. Mayfeld keeps his hands on the controls and monitors on the highly volatile Rhydonium, while Mando goes topside to take care of business. Mando, being successful thus far, sees a horde of more pirates coming for them. At the last moment, TIEs swoop in to save them, and they reach the facility in one piece.
I just want to say, I think this fight scene has been the best out of the entire series. Watching Mando use gadgets like the porcupine shooting off quills of varying masses of destruction is fun. It makes for some great special effects. But watching our hero taking care of business when he doesn't have those nice toys, like armor that doesn't get chunked off, blasters that have more than 4 shots, and the set has to rely on good old hand-to-hand and classic physics. Beautiful.
I am super impressed with this fight too. It was very tense. While we know our heroes aren't going to die, they could still get the transport blown up, throwing a wrench into their plan. Would have been an interesting twist, but was glad to see they survived unscathed. And how ironic that in our last tense chase with our team versus Imperials, it was Mando swooping in to destroy TIEs, and now TIEs are swooping in to save Mando. With Mando and Mayfeld teaming up, I can't help but call this dynamic duo M&M, which begs the question, which one is the peanut?
It's obviously Mayfeld. He's the nuttiest of the two.
Yeah, this extended fight scene was pretty cool. You know, like Nathan said, without the Mandalorian having to get by without his fancy gadgets or weapons, and kind of really, honing in and reinforcing that he does have the skills in hand-to-hand combat, and also improvisation. The one thing I don't quite get, and that kind of distracts me from this fight, is I don't understand these pirates. So if they were pirates, why were they just blowing up all the transports instead of trying to actually steal the Rhydonium? In this episode, the pirates are portrayed as some random alien species. I can't tell you which one. Star Wars has so many. They look sort of similar to one. I'm not sure. But in the concept art at the end of the credits, you see one shot of the pirates actually being human. So I could have actually seen it making more sense if this group had originally been intended to be the villagers that we saw earlier, maybe trying to fight back against the Imperial occupation. But at some point it was changed behind the scenes in the script for some reason or another.
Maybe for the same reason that Nathan pointed out the whole faceless, masked goons or soldiers in the episode with Ahsoka, that they don't want to show like actual people with real faces getting hurt. So maybe, the concept art was drawn that way, but there was no way they were going to show a bunch of human looking people getting blown up that way, especially by Mando.
Yeah, if that's the case, then they maybe should have thrown a couple of these alien guys into the village, and we would have had a bit more, cohesiveness there.
Oh yeah, I still agree with you. It is weird that the pirates seem completely disassociated with the village that is shown right before that takes place. Now in the facility, celebrated by the troops inside, M&M head for the officers' mess for a terminal they can access. In the mess, Mayfeld finds a mess. Officer Valen Hess, that's a tongue twister for sure, whom he served under. Unsure if he'll recognize him, Mayfeld doesn't want to risk it. Mando reminds him that the kid is at risk. Mando offers to do the deed himself, but Mayfeld points out that he'll need to scan his face to access the terminal. Mando asks for the data stick and goes in anyway.
I know a lot of people are probably wondering, why would a terminal require a face scan in order to allow access?
Nope, just the nerds.
Nerd! Fair. Okay. So I know a lot of nerds are probably wondering this. Well, why do Mayfeld's clearance codes still work, even though he hasn't been an active serviceman for a not insignificant amount of time? I'm just going to suggest that the terminal uses an interface for the code cylinders that droids notoriously also use to hack into systems. By requiring a face scan, the terminal can automatically shut down in an instance when a droid could be trying to access it, and having a bit more security than I've been given them credit for in this whole series by not removing clearance codes for non-active servicemen. A little nitpicky thing, but I kind of came up with a reason and figured I'd put that out there to the world in case anybody starts to question, why was it so necessary for him to take off his helmet? There's a reason. You don't need everything explained. You just got to use your imagination.
Imagination.
It's funny that Mayfeld was okay to go along with possibly being blown up on the transport, but not okay with this. Like, dude, you almost died already. Just go. I guess maybe his adrenaline wore off already. Having successfully accessed the terminal and obtained the coordinates for Moff Gideon's cruiser, Valen Hess has grown a bit suspicious of the unrecognized trooper. Mando was forced to remove his helmet and reveal his face, just as Mayfeld warned. When questioned, Mando freezes and Mayfeld comes to his aid, using his fast-talking skills to convince Hess everything is above board. Recognizing them as the pilots that brought in the only shipment of Rhydonium, Hess invites them for a celebratory drink. Before we get into the meat of potatoes of this scene, does this make this a cantina?
No.
Are you sure?
Yes.
They even call it out as the officers' mess hall.
Exactly.
Yeah,
but like they're gonna have a drink. It's got to make it a cantina.
No.
It's not a cantina.
IG? Okay, forget it.
That's not how math works.
So it's happened, gentlemen. The helmet is off. What's he gonna do now? We'll find out in a minute how this may be a moot point, but for the kid, he broke his creed. He has no way of knowing that what is about to happen is going to happen, and that meant he was willing to accept the consequences of his actions. And like that, Din Djarin's character development makes an interesting development. I say his name because I think the show is trying to make a distinction between Din and Mando. Mando is of the creed and doesn't break it. But since he was ousted as Din Djarin back in season 1 and had his helmet removed by IG-11, he's been changing little by little. Metaphorically, his armor is coming off little by little, and what we'll be left with is Din, a Mandalorian still, but not in the way we met him 14 chapters ago.
And obviously, he won't literally get rid of that armor because otherwise he'll get shot up and die.
or will he? Because I thought we said that the stormtroopers can only hit Beskar. So if he doesn't wear Beskar, he won't get hit.
So he'll just hold it off to the side while he walks butt naked through the streets.
As they sit and talk, Mayfeld brings up Operation Cinder, the time he served in the Empire under Hess. Mayfeld still holds a grudge for Hess's commands that resulted in the death of many of his fellow troopers and citizens of Burnin Khan, fighting to survive. Hess's arrogance and dismissal of the lives lost push Mayfeld too far, and he blasts the officer right in the chest. Then the two eliminate the rest of the Imperials in the mess and start to fight their way out of the refinery.
I gotta say, I love this backstory for Mayfeld. All this time, ever since he was introduced last season, I just kept seeing him as just some 2-bit criminal with unique hardware from a shoulder-mounted blaster. So learning that he used to be an Imperial and the horrors he survived through definitely made him way more sympathetic for me. Nice touch, Famuyiwa.
Yeah, I really appreciated the Operation Cinder name drop. It goes back to, I think, Star Wars Battlefront 2 and a couple of the novels. It's basically an order that was carried out after the death of the Emperor and the destruction of the second Death Star to basically raise and burn as many planets as possible, both Imperial and Rebel. Think of it as the equivalent of me saying, if I can't play with my Lego Star Destroyer, then nobody can.
What did you just do? Did you really just do that?
It's just Legos.
How dare you?
Meaning you can put them back together. Devastator, I've reassembled like 4 times now, so.
Okay. I'll allow it.
I'll allow it.
Yeah, no, it's fine.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So we see Mayfield as a survivor of Operation Cinder, and seeing his fellow troops wiped out for seemingly no good reason appears to be why he left the Empire, and that he's obviously still carrying a lot of emotional baggage.
It's also very similar to Iden Versio, Battlefront 2's character from the campaign that James mentioned earlier. She has a similar story there where she is taken back to her home planet, that is also being attacked by Operation Cinder, and has a change of heart as well after she's seeing the people from her homeworld being destroyed by the people that were saying they were going to protect it. M&M make their way to the roof as Kara and Fennec snipe pursuing enemies from afar. Having taken out the anti-air cannons, they send in Boba to retrieve them. They narrowly make the jump aboard the Slave One and start to leave as Mayfeld takes out the Rhydonium-filled transports with a well-aimed shot. They are pursued by 2 TIE fighters, but they are no match for the Slave One's seismic charge.
Mayfeld saying that they can all sleep a little better that night after stopping a potential second Cinder operation. Great callback to the conversation he was having with Mando on their way in. And again, just helps to develop Mayfeld by giving his story a conclusion.
Yeah, and I love this whole escape from the facility. You do see Boba try to make a maneuver to escape the ties, but he can't, and then he drops a seismic charge. When I was watching this scene and he's kind of flying away, he makes a maneuver but can't get away, but he's not turning around to try and fight them. I'm like, he's going to drop a seismic charge, isn't he? Do it. Do it. Do it. Do it. And then he does it, and it is absolutely glorious. Very, very awesome shot. And the sound just harkens me back to Attack of the Clones. Not a great movie, but definitely a great scene. Now safely away from the facility and Mando back in his Beskar armor, Marshal Dune and lets Mayfeld go by declaring him dead in the refinery explosion. The rest of the crew leave Morak, no doubt, after Gideon. On Gideon's ship, an officer nervously alerts them off of an incoming transmission. Mando lets Gideon know he's coming after him. I love this scene here because Moff Gideon actually looks a little worried. He doesn't look totally scared, but you can definitely tell he's concerned that Mando is coming for him. And it doesn't help his case or his feeling of security that Mando uses his own words against him. The same words he used back in season 1 when he tells him that the child is worth more to him than he'll know. He uses those exact same words against Gideon here, and it just sells the threat so well. I love it.
You have something I want. You may think you have some idea of what you are in possession of, but you do not. It means more to me than you will ever know.
You have something I want. You may think you have some idea what you are in possession of, but you do not. He means more to me than you will ever know.
Yeah, backing up real quick. So when Mando and his group get ready to leave the planet, it was interesting to see Cara Dune kind of evolve over the episode. It looks to be that she's slightly softening her anti-imperial bias, at least when she gets to know certain ex-imperials personally. From her bonding over playing sniper with Fennec Shand to letting Mayfield go after he seems to have his change of heart. Still, I'm kind of surprised that they didn't actually keep Mayfield around to help against Moff Gideon, instead just kind of leaving him on the planet to do who knows what.
So now that we've reached the end of this chapter, what are your overall thoughts on this episode, guys?
Yeah, overall, I just thought it was all right. It just kind of didn't really connect with me that much. It's like it wasn't as much of a lead in or a part 1 of the finale as I thought it was going to be. And nothing in it had near the impact of Quill's death in the penultimate episode of season 1. Like, I don't know. This wasn't quite a side quest. It was just, I don't know. The action in it is fine. The series is still competent. It's not that it was a bad episode. It's just, I don't know. Maybe I was still thrown off by, like, at the start of it with that whole Boba Fett armor thing. It just kind of rubbed me the wrong way and stuck with me. But anyway, I hope the finale is going to be supersized to make up for all this, because they got a lot that they still need to do.
I'm with James on this. Overall, the episode was good. I did like the interaction between Mando and Mayfeld. Their scrap, Mando's scrap on top of the transport was really neat. And even the scene in the refinery is actually a little tense. And I love we get the backstory on Mayfeld. You know, not everything is all black and white when it comes to who served in the Imperial Navy. And that was all great. Bill Burr playing Mayfeld is always a treat. I love that character. He remains one of my favorite characters of the show, even if he keeps hitting on the Outer Rim's new hot Marshal. But I can't help but point out, like James, that with just one chapter left, we spent this entire chapter just getting coordinates. Don't get me wrong, it was a fun ride. But, you know, what are they all going to fill in the last chapter? With all the possibilities that I brought up in the last chapter about possible Mando team up, where will there be room to fit enough closure and set up the anticipation for season 3? Again, I must put my faith in FNF. Don't fail me now.
Yeah, I agree. Great episode, poor placement. There's only one episode left of the season. It's going to end on a cliffhanger. There's no way they can get around it now. So we're just going to have to find out next week, I guess. But great episode still.
I don't know. I like to think the fact that the season 1 didn't end on a cliffhanger per se. Yeah, it had like a stinger at the end with Moff Gideon and the Darksaber. I don't think that they're gonna, or at least I hope they don't leave it on a cliffhanger. We just found out yesterday the show isn't going to be coming back until Christmas of next year. Mm-hmm. So that's not that much more of a wait, I guess. But I don't know. Hopefully it's not a cliffhanger.
Anywho, tell us what you thought of Brown Eyes in Chapter 15, The Believer.
That wraps up this episode of My Mando and Me. Join us next week for the season finale in chapter 16.
And I'm calling it right now. It's going to be called Imprisoned.
Ooh. If you enjoyed our show, be sure to like and subscribe so you don't miss future episodes of My Mando and Me. Thanks again for joining us. See you all in the next one.
Later.
Be good to each other out there.